no pressure. Okay, Michael has a new toy that he's been trying to use. He's been waiting for an opportunity. He asked me tonight, he said, do you want to be mic'd? I didn't realise quite what I was letting myself in for. That explains this thing. Okay. To all the heartbroken ones, the misunderstood ones, to all you misfits, outcasts, freaks and worldly failures, to the ones they jeer at, poke, ridicule and crucify, to all you lonely, disillusioned poets and mad visionaries, to those whose worlds are falling apart, to those who have sought the light for so long yet still feel far away, to those whose unshakable absolutes have dissolved into the relative, to those whose hearts are burning up, to those whose dreams have crumbled to the ground, to those who have given everything for truth, to those who have taken the path of crucifixion over the path of worldly comfort, to all of you out there in the dark, I salute you. There is such dignity in what you are going through. Life has called you to the deepest kind of trust in your own experience. Do not turn away. This is your unique invitation. From the cosmic perspective, nothing has gone wrong. Only the false can die. From the perspective of the heart, it is always a brand new day. Your beauty lies in your willingness to break. I walk with you, my perfectly broken family. Those were words from Jeff Foster. A few years ago, I did a course called the Worship Studies course with the Unitarian Church, and one of the things I heard was congregations want to know that their preachers and their ministers bleed, they just don't want to see the blood. I hope I don't make a mess tonight. The writer Mark Nepo says that we build tender bridges when we connect that which lives at the heart of our problems to the hearts of the problems of others. And then we become bridges to each other, to the world, and to the spirit that informs everything. And one way we do this, I believe, is by listening to each other as we share the stories of who we are. In 1984, I lived in Manchester. I lived in Chorlton in Manchester. And I used to go and hang out in a hotel. I can't remember the name of it. It might have been something like Brooklyn, but it was. It had a sauna there, and I used to go and hang out there. And I got friendly with one of the staff members there, a really nice guy called Stuart. 1984 became a very dark year for me. I ended up in a place of thinking that committing suicide would be a very logical solution to the pain that I felt that I was living in. I convinced myself that somehow killing myself would take away my pain, it would solve the world's problems, it would solve my parents' problems, would solve everybody else's problems. I convinced myself I had no concept of the consequences of what that action would do on others. And so I planned it, and I checked into this hotel, because I thought didn't want to inconvenience anybody else. So I checked into this hotel one night, and I took an overdose. I took a lot of pills. I remember it so clearly because it was and I remember it was 1984. I'll never forget the year because it was the year that the Olympics were taking place in Los Angeles. And one of the last images I remember watching on the television in my hotel room was Daley Thompson bending over and pulling his shorts down and mooning the crowds. He'd won something and he mooned the crowds, and this was outrageous at the time. Also, it was Daley Thompson. Needless to say, I failed. At the time, I was absolutely furious. that I'd failed. I remember waking up in the hospital being absolutely furious that I'd failed yet again. I have to add that I'm absolutely, totally grateful that I failed. But at the time I was furious. So I'm not telling you this story in the sort of, that was my life then and this is my life now, I've met Jesus and now my life is kind of wonderful, and although my life is wonderful. But I'm telling it because there are times when it's not wonderful. Life can be hard sometimes. Getting up and facing the day, trying to answer the call to what we're meant to do can be hard. Nor am I here making a moral judgment about suicide, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. Instead, I want to acknowledge the reality of it in the story of my life, and how in not telling of it, it remains hidden in the dark, remains imprisoned by some kind of shame. So I speak of my wounds. I bear my scars by reaching out to others and saying, yes, this is part of my story. I don't know if it's part of yours, but if it is, please know that you are not alone with it. That was in 1984. I moved to Brighton in 2004, 20 years later. In the between, I'd been overseas and I lived in America. I moved back to England and I came to Brighton. And I'd not been here very long, and I was walking along the seafront, and there was a guy walking towards me, and I thought, oh, you look familiar. You look like Stuart, who I used to know in the hotel in Manchester. And I looked at him, I thought, and so I stopped him and I said, is your name Stuart? And he said, yes. It was the same guy. This was 20 years later. So I was able to find out what had actually happened, and he told me that they'd become concerned that I hadn't come down to breakfast the next morning, and he had a sense that maybe something wasn't right, and so he went upstairs and I wasn't answering the door, and they broke the door down and called an ambulance. And I was able to thank him for that and really mean it. When I woke up in hospital, I was in a regular men's ward, and something happens when men get together. I'm not sure if it's the same for women, but you get these men from all over. They come together in a hospital ward, and some kind of bonding takes place. In this kind of group bonding takes place, and so after a couple of days, I emerged into the day room and was met by this group of men who kind of got to know each other, and amongst them there was an elderly Austrian man. And he looked at me and he said, one day, he looked at me, he said, you know, you could be whatever you want to be. He said, it's in your eyes. I had no idea what he was talking about at the time. I thought, oh, that was a nice thing to say. It's taken me 30 years to get a sense, a real understanding of what he was trying to tell me. And so that got me thinking about, so I see him as being an angel. He was one of the angels in my life. I didn't know it at the time. Stuart was one of the angels in my life. I didn't know it at the time. I recognise it now. And so I wonder, are there not kind of like, do we not all have kind of signposts and angels that have appeared to us that we maybe didn't know that they were at the time? Because this brings to mind a story, which you may well have heard. So as a flood warning goes out, it's in America. As a flood warning goes out, there's going to be heavy rains are going to come, and the rivers are going to rise, and the flood waters are going to rise. So this particular area, they're told they need to evacuate their homes. And there's a guy who lives there, he's got a house there, and he said, it's okay, God will save me, it's fine, God will save me. And so he ignores the message that comes over the radio. And then these neighbours come by and knock on his door, and they say, we're heading off now, do you want a lift, do you want to come with us? And he said, no, I'm fine, God will save me, it'll be fine. And it starts to rain and the waters start to rise. And then the rescuers come by on their rubber dinghies, and they come and knock on his door. He said, come on, come with us, and do you want to come with us? We'll take you to dry land. He said, no, it's fine. God will save me. And the waters keep rising and keep rising, so he moves to the upper floor, and they keep rising, and he ends up on the roof. And there's a helicopter comes by, and the rescue workers lets the ladder down and say, come on, get on the ladder, we can take you to dry land, we can take you to safety. And he's going, no, it's fine, it's all right, God will save me. And the water keeps rising, and sadly he drowns. And he ends up in heaven, and he comes face to face with God, and he says, I thought you were going to save me. And God says, well, I sent you the radio announcement, I sent you the neighbours, I sent you the rubber dinghy, I sent you the helicopter, what else did you want? So we don't always hear them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, he gave thanks, broke it and began to give it to them. And then their eyes were opened and they recognized him. Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. It wasn't until he broke bread with them that they see him for who he truly is. And I wonder if it's the same for us. I wonder if it is in opening ourselves that God may be encountered. For I believe that in telling our stories of who we are, we become vulnerable and reveal our brokenness. And in doing so, we give permission for others to tell their stories, reveal their brokenness, their humanness. For a well-told story can change the way we relate to each other. It can open up the wide, expansive space of humanity. It is the work of the kitchen table. It is the possibility of being human we have when we tell our stories. Our brokenness is not all of who we are, but we are all broken in one way or another. And I say it is in telling our stories, bringing our brokenness into the light, that we can begin building those tender bridges, connecting that which lives at the heart of our problems to the heart of the problems of others, and we become bridges to each other, to the world, and to the spirit that informs everything. And in doing so, we may just begin to find peace and healing. You are a child of God. We are all children of God, made of the same stardust, works in progress, never finished, but forever in a process of becoming, guided by a changing understanding and interpretation of our life. How we strive to do this can be determined by the way we regard our own fallible, vulnerable, flawed attempts at being human. We try, with compassion or with resistance, but with faith, forgiveness, and an open heart, we try. And we practice. And we pray. So I'd like to close with a version of the Beatitudes by the Lutheran pastor Nadia Bolz-Weber. She has a church in Denver, Colorado, and it's called House for All Sinners and Saints. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the agnostics. Blessed are they who doubt, those who aren't sure, who can still be surprised. Blessed are they who are spiritually impoverished and therefore not so certain about everything that they no longer take in new information. Blessed are those who have nothing to offer. Blessed are they for whom nothing seems to be working. Blessed are the preschoolers who cut in line at communion. Blessed are the poor in spirit. You are of heaven, and Jesus blesses you. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are they for whom death is not an abstraction. Blessed are they who have buried their loved ones, for whom tears are as real as an ocean. Blessed are they who have loved enough to know what loss feels like. Blessed are the mothers of the miscarried. Blessed are they who don't have the luxury of taking things for granted anymore. Blessed are they who can't fall apart because they have to keep it together for everyone else. Blessed are the motherless, the alone, the ones from whom such has been taken. Blessed are those who still aren't over it yet. Blessed are they who laughed again when for so long they thought they never would. Blessed are those who mourn. You are of heaven, and Jesus blesses you. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who no one else notices. The kids who sit alone at middle school lunch tables, the laundry guys at the hospitals, the sex workers and the night shift street sweepers. Blessed are the losers and the babies and the parts of ourselves that are so small. The parts of ourselves that don't want to make eye contact with a world that only loves the winners. Blessed are the forgotten. Blessed are the closeted. Blessed are the unemployed, the unimpressive and the underrepresented. Blessed are the teens who have to figure out ways to hide the new cuts on their arms. Blessed are the meek. You are of heaven, and Jesus blesses you. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the wrongly accused, the ones who never catch a break, the ones for whom life is hard, for they are those with whom Jesus chose to surround himself. Blessed are those without documentation. Blessed are the ones without lobbyists. Blessed are the foster kids, the trophy kids and special ed kids and every other kid who just wants to feel safe and loved and never does. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are they who know there has to be more than this, because they are right. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are those who make terrible business decisions for the sake of people. Blessed are the burnt-out social workers and the overworked teachers and the pro bono caretakers. Blessed are the kids who step between the bullies and the weak. Blessed are they who delete hateful homophobic comments off their friend's Facebook page. Blessed are the ones who have received such real grace that they're no longer in the position of ever deciding who the deserving poor are. Blessed is everyone who has ever forgiven me when I didn't deserve it. And blessed are the merciful, for they totally get it. May all that is unforgiven in you be released. May your fears yield their deepest tranquillities. May all that is unlived in you blossom into a future graced with love. Amen.
Amen.